Okay, here is part 3 of our factoring quadratic trinomials, the box method, otherwise known as the area method. So let's take a look at how we do this. So before we look at it though, I want to talk about the signs. And I did screenshot this page so that I can download it to Schoology as a resource. So how do you determine when you're breaking apart these trinomials, how are you going to tell what signs you're going to use when you break them apart? Well, we mentioned in the other video that if you had this situation right here, where your C sign is positive, well, you know that both binomials have to have the same sign. How do you know that? Because two negative numbers multiplied together give you a positive number, and two positive numbers give you a positive number when you multiply them together, right? So the B sign right here tells you which one is which. So if C is positive and B is positive, then both of your binomials are going to be positive. If C is positive and B is negative, then both of your binomials are going to be negative. So let's look at the situation where your C sign is negative. Well, in that case, you know that one binomial is going to be positive and the other is going to be negative. Because how do you multiply to get a negative number? Well, one number has to be negative and one has to be positive. So your B sign in this scenario tells you which factor is the larger factor, right? So if in this case, look at how I factored this, okay? We've got negative 10. So two factors of 10 are 2 and 5, but they add up to a negative 3. That means that when you add them together, the number you had left over was negative, which means that the larger factor had to be the negative number. And if you add these together, negative 5 plus 2 does indeed give you negative 3. So I hope that was helpful there. So now let's move on to what we're actually doing. Box area method of factoring quadratic trinomials. Well, we need a trinomial, so I'm going to write one down right now. N squared plus 2n minus 15. Okay? So that's what we're going to be factoring. So step 1. Draw your area model. Since I know I'm dealing with two binomials because I have a quadratic binomial, I know that I'm going to be writing 4 boxes. One of my binomials will be written across the top, and the other one will be written down the side. Okay. Step 2. Put your A term in the upper left box, so my squared term goes up here, and put your C term in the lower right. Here's my C, so I'm going to write negative 15 here. Next, multiply A times C. So in this problem, my A coefficient is 1 and my C is negative 15. So 1 times negative 15 equals negative 15. Okay? So now start writing the factors of negative 15. What two numbers? Well, there's 1 and 15. Well, I know that doesn't work because they have to add up to 2. So what's my next choice? 3 times 5. So now let's look at this sign right here, just like we looked at in the previous panel. The B sign is positive, so that means that my larger factor has to be positive. So that means I know that this term has to be positive 5x, and this term has to be negative 3x. And it doesn't matter where I write this term. Okay? So, next step. We found our factors of C that add up to B, and we filled out our other two boxes. So now, the last step is you're going to look, you can either do across the row. Oh, I put an N. Sorry about that. I did not mean to confuse you guys. Let's just make this all X's, shall we? And let's do the same up here so you guys don't get confused. Sorry about that. CUDA gives you all kinds of different scenarios, all kinds of different letters, but we should stick to X. So now to finish, you go across a row or down a column. It doesn't matter. I'm going to go across a row. So what is the greatest common factor between negative 3 and negative 15? When both of these numbers are negative, you should factor out a negative number. So the largest thing that can divide out of here is a negative 3. So if I divide negative 3 negative 3x by negative 3, what do I have left? I have a positive x. So I'm going to write that up here. So now let's do the same thing here. I've got x squared plus 5x. What is the greatest common factor between these two terms? Why, it's x. And then what do I have left? 5x divided by x gives me positive 5. Look, I've got them all filled out. You can check your math to make sure that you did it right. See, x times x is x squared. X times negative 3 is negative 3x. X times 5 is positive 5x. And negative 3 times positive 5 is negative 15. So I can rewrite my two binomials, x plus 5 and x minus 3. So there you have it. There is the box or area method. In the next video, we'll do some examples and expand upon this to see what happens when A is greater than 1.